So in this video, I want to talk about a little of a combination of Alya sometimes her feelings in Russian and a little bit of getting married to a girl I hate. Now, this will cover some spoilers, very, very, very minor spoilers, mainly just contextual stuff to give an idea of where characters stand on the food chain and their general feelings on things, but nothing major, like, for example, Yuki is actually not related to the main male protagonist and actually their secret lovers in a past life. I won't be spoiling any of that stuff, so do not panic. I won't be spoiling the fact that they end up getting married and everyone else loses. So, without further ado, if you didn't get that was a joke, then you need help. So, let's get into the video. So I wanted to talk about particularly more Alya sometimes I feel in Russian. Obviously from the title of the video, whatever I come up with, because there is this kind of discussion of like, I'm not acknowledging the fact that Masha is deceptive. And the reason why is because the light novel series is self-aware of that. Masha acknowledges very much in the early stages of the story that she understands how Alya feels, how she feels in this, and the fact that she doesn't want to say anything to Alya because it would then impede on how Alya would respond and how she would act towards clearly a guy that she has interest in. And that's the thing as well, is that the light novels and in the anime maybe I could understand people interpreting it a little bit different, but in the anime, in the light novels, Alya still hasn't fully come to terms with her feelings yet, especially at the end of Volume 7 when the beginning starts to happen. And that's very much in the anime as well, but sometimes people could kind of see that as well. She's clearly in love. Like, from our perspective, and even Masha's perspective, Masha sees Alya is in love with him. But to her, she hasn't come to terms with that yet. She is still coming to terms, and once she's able to finally come to terms, clearly she will then enact on that and become more pursuing of her feelings. But Masha currently in the story is one of those where she's at that point where she's like, well, I'm going to flirt with him still because I clearly had feelings for him and I still like him. And she's kind of in that playful manner. She's very self-aware of her feelings. Is she being somewhat deceptive and a little bit naughty? Yeah, she is. But do I need to make an 8 to 10 to 20 minute long video explaining that? No, not necessarily. Why? Because, well, Masha acknowledges it. I simply only need to acknowledge that she acknowledges it. That's self-awareness on her behalf. So I don't need to make an individual video all the time going over Masha's sort of playful manner. Now, is she being somewhat deceptive? It really depends on the sort of the gravity of it. I mean, Masha could just be an absolute douchebag and openly admit that there's a past history between him and her, and that would completely destroy any competition for her. Because she admits that Alya would back down straight away if she openly said that they had feelings. Because Masha would only need to say, yeah, I'm in love with him, and she would. Alya would back down. Because Alya doesn't want to get in the way between Masha and any potential romance partner. That's just, Alya doesn't want to, it's just like straight away. It's a sisterly bond kind of thing. Like, Alya doesn't want to go against what her sister wants. So Alya would suppress her feelings. Masha knows that, so that's why Masha doesn't say anything. It doesn't mean that Masha isn't scared of maybe having a little bit of flirtatiousness and seeing if he will actually pick her. He is one of those where I think sometimes he's a little bit confused to how he feels, but she is also very self-aware at the fact that there is that little bit of a tug-of-war that where she might still have a chance in her own mind, even though I think we all kind of know that he will pick Alya in the end. That's kind of the uncertainty of how the story is going. I know that's kind of a little bit of a spoiler, but it isn't really because most people can pick up on that. But the light novels does go into a little bit deeper on it. Now, where the issue comes down to, and the criticism of my videos comes down to, is the getting married to a girl I hate. And I've been very critical of that series and how the main female love interest is deceptive and lies to her own friend about the relationship. And the issue isn't, it's not a one-to-one comparison, and I don't really think it's fair to compare the two series together because there's a complete different issue with getting married to a girl I hate. To start with, the girl in that series is not even, it's a flip-flop. one minute there's progress when it comes to their feelings, and then the next minute they backflip, and it feels forced. It doesn't feel natural to the story. It doesn't feel like, oh, my feelings have retracted because you've done something to earn that. No, it's just we're at the end of volume 5 and we've got another 5 volumes to go. Well, I better start not liking you as much because we need to drag this out for another 5 volumes, because too much progress happens so that they need to backpedal. And that's one of the issues right there. When it comes to Alya sometimes as her feelings in Russian, you might complain that the story progress is a little bit slower, but at least it isn't inconsistent. At least it has a pace that feels somewhat consistent. So that's why I prefer Alya sometimes her feelings in Russian, because the story feels consistent, the characters feel consistent, it doesn't feel like it backpedals just for the sake of dragging out more progress, which is exactly what happens with getting married to a girl I hate. It's one of those where she's a tsundere, but it goes beyond being a tsundere to just being an absolute douche. An unnecessary douche. It's borderline bullying at this point. Like, she's just being unnecessarily mean for the sake of being mean, just because the story needs to facilitate her being as evil as possible. Like, one minute he's like sitting there going out on a date with another girl because she's turned around and said, I'm not interested in you, I don't want to be with you, you're the worst thing on the planet. He's like, alright, well, I'm going to go out with them. And then she gets upset. And it's like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't sit there and directly say, I am not in love with you. I hate you. I despise you. By the way, you can't go out with my best friend who is in love with you because, the story facility, it's contradictory. And that's why I criticize it. Because the story contradicts itself for the sake of dragging it out. It's not they're doing these things because it's love triangle or rivalry or a tsundere. It goes beyond being a tsundere and just being contradictory and hypocritical and just being a douchebag. It feels forced for the sake of it. And I know that rubs some people the wrong way that really love that series, but I feel like some people get too attached to the idea of a tsundere, because a tsundere it's gone from the point of like old school animes where a tsundere is like someone they still have feelings for the person, but they're still coming to terms with it. And then it just goes from that to just being like, oh no, I'm just going to become a bully and just be some of the most horrendously horrible things on the planet, but he's just going to suck it up because, well, the story needs to facilitate that. That's why I have a problem with it, because it doesn't make any sense. There's no reason for him to love her when she acts in the way it does. Like, unless you are a complete masochist that is completely mind broken, it doesn't make any sense to me. And I know some people say, oh, there's some people out there like that. Sure, but those types of people don't act rationally like he does. Like I said, inconsistencies. But when you look at Alya sometimes her feelings in Russian, does Alya sometimes act like a tsundere? Yeah, but she also doesn't completely go off the rails where she says things that are just like irredeemable. It's not like she's insulting his mother or something, or insulting the very fabric of who he is. She's just kind of like, she gets angry because he says something silly, or maybe he looks at something the wrong way, and she's like, I can read your mind, you like this, or you're doing this, and then she gets a little bit irritated, and it's kind of a back and forth. Like, there's understanding of why she's upset. It's not just random and unnecessary. There is a reasoning behind her response. So that's why I feel like Alya's kind of behavior makes more sense, and why I criticize the other series than this. But as far as Masha goes, I don't need to explain her playful nature as if it's some evil diabolical plan, because, well, Masha openly admits that she is being a little bit naughty in what she's doing. So I don't need to go super deep on that, because it's unnecessary. I'm just simply acknowledging that she's self-aware of what she's doing. I understand this kind of need to acknowledge things every 2 seconds, but it's like, and on top of that, I have acknowledged about her behavior in past volumes as well. But for some reason, I need to acknowledge it in every single light novel, what Mash is doing. That is something that I've had a problem with when it comes to things like reviewing So I'm a Spider, So What? Is that I will acknowledge something in one volume, and then in the next volume, if I don't acknowledge it again, and then again and again and again and again, people get angry and go, well, you didn't acknowledge this. And I'm like, yeah, but I did in the last volume. And they go, well, you have to acknowledge it in every video. It's like, okay, so you want me to say the same thing in 10 different videos? Because then I get another comment of someone complaining that I repeat myself too much. So either I need to repeat myself in every video and get yelled at for repeating myself, or not repeat myself and then get yelled at for not repeating myself. Again, I try to find a balance, and it's not always perfect because someone's always got something to criticize, but I try to find a balance when it comes to how I critique characters and not having to repeat myself too much, because I don't like repeating myself too much, and I know other people don't, but I feel sometimes it's necessary, and sometimes I have to acknowledge something very shortly, and that is what I did in Volume 7 of Alya-san Films in Russian. I acknowledge that she's self-aware of it. But it's like a brushing over comment that takes like maybe like 20 seconds, 30 seconds. But because I don't turn it into a 8-minute long segment, apparently I'm not acknowledging it. And I'm sorry, but I'm not going to... I feel like this is like the one and only time I need to re-acknowledge it. Because Masha, like I have said, and I'm repeating it in this video again, she is self-aware of what she's doing. But she's also been somewhat more fairer in how she's going about it. Because as I said before, she could tell Alya how she feels or about their past history, and Alya would instantly back off, and that would be the end of the romance between them. Masha knows that, which is why Masha's doing things in the way that she's doing it. Because she knows if she told it, that would be really mean. Because she knows Alya has feelings for him. She just hasn't been aware of it. And that's the thing about Alya. Her journey is about coming to terms with her own feelings, what she desires, what she wants in a person, and then being able to put that forward. Because you got to remember, she doesn't know about Yuki yet. That's going to be a major revelation, is when she finds out about Yuki and goes, oh, wait, they're related? And Yuki's just been trolling me the entire time? That's going to be a fun revelation. And I also think it's going to be super fun. And I sometimes think people don't understand Yuki either. And I've talked about it in a past video as well, where I feel like Yuki is so good at trolling that some people don't know that she's not serious. But I also think that's just because some people don't watch the anime or read the light novels, and so they make passing judgments on 30-second clips, not understanding that Yuki is a troll type character that is just insanely well written. Like one of the best sister characters out there, in my opinion, when it comes to how she is well written. So I don't want to harp on too long about that. Again, I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I do want to reiterate, this is not some personal attack on any individual commenter, but I like to have those discussions and bring them up and add additional context. So again, do not take it as some personal vendetta against you, if you know what this is about. But it's just one of those, I think it's an interesting discussion. I think, you know, as much as I bring it up, I want to make its own video and point out that Masha is self-aware of what she's doing, and I don't need to make some long-winded video calling her an evil villain, because as much as what she's doing is naughty, she's not a super villain. I find the girl in getting married to a girl I hate, I wouldn't call her a super villain, but I just find how she's written is less constructive. And I don't even have a problem with the actual character, I just have a problem with the writer and how it feels like they're trying to drag it out unnecessarily. I feel like the story would have been better if it was just a 5-volume series rather than, or even a 6-volume rather than 10-volume, because it feels like as the story goes on, they need to undo progress. And I've said this in my review, they need to undo progress so that there's still room for more progress. That's not good storytelling. If you have to undo something deliberately because you need to drag it out and then it feels forced, that's not good storytelling. It needs to feel natural. It needs to feel like it makes sense for the characters to behave in that manner. If it's just an author doing something because it needs to be done because of a quota of volumes, it's not a good design. And Overlord is another example of that. So again, love to know your thoughts. If you like this video, hit the like, subscribe, and I'll see you beautiful nerds in the next video.